So good afternoon and welcome to the Manila press launch of the 2012 World Investment Report. The theme of this year's report is Investment Policy Framework for Sustainable Development. A major chapter of the report is devoted to discussing UNCTAD's policy framework for sustainable development. And I'd like to quote just one statement from this chapter. The global political and economic context and the challenges that need to be addressed are leading policymakers to reflect on an emerging new development paradigm that places inclusive and sustainable development goals on the same footing as economic growth. This press launch comes on the heels of the recently concluded UN Conference on Sustainable Development, or Rio+20 Summit. Thus, this proposed paradigm shift in investment policies is particularly opportune. An important agenda item at the Rio+20 Summit was defining the outlines of what is called a green economy. This concept has received mixed reviews, from guarded optimism to outright dismissal as nothing more than business as usual. So we're hoping that the discussions this afternoon could address partly this debate. So the question is, can the next generation of investment policies really bring about inclusive and sustainable development? So to help us to navigate this difficult subject, we have our guest presenter, the Director of Social Weather Stations and former Director of NEDA for Planning and Policy, National Planning and Policy, Mr. Dennis Arroyo. Let's give him a big hand.
Okay, thank you, Tess. Good afternoon. So welcome to the World Investment Report. We focus now on the new generation of investment policies. So next please. First, see that global FDI flows have surpassed the pre-crisis average, the pre-crisis levels. On the left-hand side, the left-hand bar, it was $1.47 trillion. It went down by 2009 to 1.198 trillion and has been rebounding. We're now at 1.524 trillion dollars. So you can see the rebound. We're back to the pre-crisis levels. Inflows have grown. Next please. They have grown across all major groupings. It's across developed economies, developing economies, even transition economies. Hence, the emerging markets account for half of the world total. Next please. While there was some fall in outflows from emerging markets, they have remained high at more than $25 billion. As you can see in the lower line here, it's more than $25 billion. So they have remained high. Production by TNCs, or transnational corporations, have grown. They account for 69 million workers, $28 trillion in sales, 10% of global GDP, and assets of $82 trillion. Greenfield investments are new factories, new enterprises. They're distinct from mergers and acquisitions, or M&As. Greenfield investments are still dominant, but the M&As are driving growth. So the greenfields are the ones here. These are green bars. This light green. They've been steady, but more or less you see growth in the dark green. The M&As, they've been growing. The mergers and acquisitions. There were 2 years of decline by the primary and service sectors. But now we see a turnaround. Under value, as primary, it fell from $230 billion to 170 to 140, but now a turnaround of $200 billion. Same thing with services, from 1.1 trillion to 630 billion, 490, then a turnaround, 470. So things really are turning around. Now, sovereign wealth funds, SWFs, they're small, at only 125 billion, but they have much potential for investment in development. Their investment outlook is long-term. They're engaged in large-scale holdings. So it's only 125 billion FDI today and 5 trillion in assets. Still, they have much potential because they're in large-scale holdings and they think long-term. They're managed by countries like China. Next, please. Okay, let's look at UNCTAD's new FDI contribution index. The x-axis, you can see it, no? It's FDI inward stock over GDP. The colors are, the green is above expectations, the tan is below expectations, white is within or in line with expectations. This diagonal here. So the Philippines is in line with expectations. We are, well, on par. National investment policies have been more favorable. It's more, they're more for liberalization rather than restriction. So that still continues, no? You have liberalization and promotion rather than being protectionist policies. We see it globally. Next, please. We're seeing a shift in international investment agreements. International investment agreements from bilateral to regional. Okay, it's now shifting to regional. The gray bars are BITs, BIT, bilateral investment treaties. As you can see here, and then okay. Now, what they show is that SMCs have to contend with CSR challenges, CSR, corporate social responsibility, because you have the proliferation of CSR codes. You have multiple fragmented codes and strategies. And these codes, the international codes, exceed the host country regulations. So they're excessive and they're also multiple. You have diverging requirements from different TNCs. To handle that, policy options must include CSR in enterprise development and capacity building, and also encourage harmonization of standards by TNCs at the industry level. So these would help the problem. We go now to a major portion of the report, the new generation of investment policies following the IPFSD, or the Investment Policy Framework for Sustainable Development. The new generation of investment policies stresses inclusive growth and sustainable development. They strive for seamless integration in development strategies. They foster responsible investor behavior and the principles of CSR. They ensure policy effectiveness in their design and implementation. But they must confront challenges for policy making at both the national and international levels. So, for the national challenges, we have integrating investment policy in development strategy, incorporating sustainable development objectives in investment policy, and ensuring investment policy relevance and effectiveness. These require ensuring coherence with policy areas toward overall development plans, fostering responsible investor behavior, measuring sustainable development impact of investment. For the international investment policy challenges, these are strengthening development of the development dimension of the IIAs, or International Investment Agreement, agreements. Second, balancing the rights and obligations of states and investors. Third, managing the systemic complexity of the IAA regime. So these require reflecting investor responsibilities in the IAAs, learning from and building on CSR principles, dealing with gaps, overlaps, and inconsistencies in IAA coverage and content, ensuring interaction and coherence with public policies. To address these challenges, UNCTAD has formulated a comprehensive investment policy framework for sustainable development. It consists of core principles for investment policies, national investment policy guidelines, and options for the design and use of the IAAs, the national investment agreements. This is the website. UNCTAD's IPFSD can serve as a reference point for policymakers to create national investment policies. It can be used for reviewing IAAs. The website has interactive features where the investment committee can exchange views. You can also like your comments. Next, please. So here are the websites now, and take note of the last one, the unctad.org IPFSD. That's where you can find the previous slide, though, that website. So you can download the document, and also you can share insights on these policies. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arroyo. Since Professor Monsod is not yet around, but first I would like to say that in your press kit you will find the CD containing the full report of the full World Investment Report in PDF format, as well as all of the press releases and other related materials. So Mr. Arroyo is happy to field questions now. Please just go to the front and ask your question. Yes, Johnny.
Thank you very much. I'm Johnny Dayan, Publishers Association of the Philippines and Telcon Balita. I would like to express our appreciation of the report and the initiative of the UN office here in Manila. I wonder if this can be replicated, this kind of reporting and more detailed explanation, so that our people can benefit out of this information. The turn around and all this could be appreciated well if a massive information campaign could be launched further. As of now, our people, I'm almost certain that 90% of our people, especially those in the countryside, do not understand. What they understand that the longgong is rising, the cost of chicken is rising, and almost all commodities, including what used to be 28 pesos per kilo rice, is now 39 or 37 pesos. They cannot understand all this turnaround if we don't undertake a campaign that would make them understand and appreciate.
Yes, now speaking as a former NEDA official, I can relate to that because it's one thing to give a talk in NCR. What should be done is to have road shows nationally, no? Regional road shows where they can explain such findings and present them in press conference or whatnot. So these must be done using the tri-media also, because now we're in this age what really to go viral, you have to go via the internet, no? So I would recommend road shows for the UN. I don't know what your plans are. That's, but these things will help you disseminate, no? Provincial road shows, get things on TV. Everything laymanized. This is to actually it's also too highfalutin for most people. So maybe a kind of laymanized version, which which can be mentioned in talk shows, and also using the youth savvy on the social media. We are, after all, the meme capital of the world, in effect, no? So these three things may help.
If I may add, Dennis, Mr. Dayang, the reason that UNCTAD has press launches is that UNCTAD trusts journalists like you and the rest to communicate such a difficult technical report in ways that laypersons could appreciate. So we are hoping that through the articles that will be generated by this launch, we could reach probably a broader audience than just the specialists. Any questions? Yes, Kim. Please, go to the mic.
Yeah. Kim Patria from Business World. I was wondering if there are specific figures for the Philippine outlook in 2012-2014 also.
Maybe I will check the CD, no? The CD was given, sorry. The CD was given today, so I don't know for a fact if more information on the CD. I only have what's given to me.
Okay. There is a press release in your kit, but it's generalized for Southeast Asia, I think. We don't have a specific Philippine report. But
Question, do you have CDs in your kit, all of you? So ikaw na muna. Talaga? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm Andy Manaloto. I want to react on the laymanization point of view. I used to be a consultant of NEDA for communication. I prepared a communication plan 10 years ago. Like this MTPDP, I said, is a tongue twister. So it cannot even be translated to things people could relate, in a sense. No? So kung baka pwede yung matapat dapat. If you see the abbreviation of MTPDP, it presents matapat dapat. Matapat dapat. So I suggested the term. Solita, I think that was the year that President Jeme was just ascending into power, so it was not taken up. I don't know why. Because I was arguing that governance is a fundamental element of your MTPDP. It must be embedded. So yung matapat doon, nandun, dapat. Pero mukhang hindi kinagat. But going to laymanization, for example, people could not relate to investment issues because they feel they are not investors. If we could have that concept, right now, I just thought about this, am I an investor? Make the people think that they are investors by explaining some concepts to them. Like, if I am an SSS member, which 30 million of us Filipinos are, then we are all investors. If we could just explain to them the concept, the moment you pay premium to SSS, you are already an investor because SSS is a major player in the investment field. Billion-billion din magpautang ang SSS di ba? So, those concepts, you could trigger such concepts. At that point in time, I remember we even engaged Boots Dalisay to translate the MTPDP into laymanizable language na maintindihan. Pero hindi siguro yung lingwahe ang problema eh. Baka yung concept niya eh. Like this investor fee. Ang feeling ko, kung may paramdam natin sa tao na even the common employee is an investor, then it takes ownership. of these developments. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I would react by stressing to the people, no, to fight poverty, you need jobs. And to create jobs, you need investors. That connect, that link between jobs, poverty, and investment is so important. And on laymanizing, I see more dynamism among the youth. So I would even venture to try the MTV as a means. I mean, if I had my way, example, if I were in the Pinoy government, I want to trumpet achievements, economic achievements. I would actually make, good afternoon, ma'am. My old professor in UP Econ, Professor Emeritus Solita. Sure. Yes, laymanizing is important, something which I did before in Inquirer, and something which I believe is important for campaigning for reform, for pushing reform. Have you heard of the phrase intellectual dynasties? That is, you have intellectual A writing a thesis, it's read only by intellectual B and C, only a dynasty. We must laymanize it to create pressure for reform.
Can we defer the questions for now and turn over to Professor Monsod for reaction?
Yes.
How am I going to react to something I haven't heard? What did I see on the slides? 3 minutes. Let me see the slides.
Okay.
Can I,
Okay, while my teacher is going to the slides, we can take some questions.
Let's welcome our guest reactor.
sorry. My slides. I apologize for my tardiness. I am not usually tardy, except that today I was trying so hard to finish some semblance of a reaction to the presentation. You know, of course, that we only received the full report. At least I received my copy only Tuesday afternoon, and of course I wasn't available to study on Tuesday afternoon. So forgive me if my reaction is disjointed, but I did my best. Okay, is that mine? That's not mine. Where is mine? It's UNCTAD, would you believe? 2012. I am okay. Let's see what I tried to do. No, it's not. First, I'd like to say that I am very, very fond of UNCTAD, and a lot of you are maybe too young to know that at one point, UNCTAD essentially served as the secretariat to the South, to the developing countries. It had extremely dynamic leadership. Raul Prebisch was there, and they were doing an enormous amount of research that essentially tended to question the conventional thinking with respect to development, trade and development. Does anybody remember Raul Predish? Oh, Ghana. When I was a graduate student, he was an icon because he was essentially taking up the cudgels for the developing countries and saying that the development paradigm at that time was all wrong. He certainly contributed a lot, but to the thinking at the time, and at any rate, UNCTAD was the agency that developing countries went to for help, because of course they had no research capability and they had really very little analytical capability, and because of that, UNCTAD was muzzled. Sometime in the starting, I think in the 70s or in the 80s, UNCTAD was muzzled. They really they designed UNCTAD, and thank God UNDP came forward to take up the slack for the developing countries, and UNCTAD is back right now. So I'm glad. All right, I'm sure. Did you talk about the attraction and potential index? All right, next please. And this is how you, in other words, there is an attempt by UNCTAD, and this has been going on for years, to find out how attractive a country is, given this particular, in terms of attractiveness, in terms of skills, in terms of resources, enabling infrastructure. All of this are part of the attractiveness, of the potential index. The attractiveness index is really, excuse me, let's go to attractiveness index first. One more, one step above. Above. Manila, excuse me. Yeah, attraction. There, the previous slide, please. All right. It's just the attraction index merely says how much do we receive, how much do the countries receive, and how much do they receive relative to them. It's a very simple thing. The potential is a little bit more complicated. And then this year they added the contribution index, which I thought was actually very neat, where they are looking at the next, as Dennis said, next slide please. All right. Yeah. All right. The development impact of FDI, and it has 7 different variables or different indicators, and of course there must be at least 4 indicators that are saved. There are only 79 countries which had the data that it's a start. So that's the contribution of 2012, the 2012 WIR. And I just wanted to show, as he did, but I want to emphasize something. Next slide, please. Right. Okay. Here is the FDI contribution index rankings. There are 79. Of course, I did not have the time to put all 79. But I want you to know that Hungary was number 1 in terms of contribution. Hong Kong, China was number 5. Malaysia was number 7 out of 79. And these are the different variables. Thailand was 16. Even Indonesia was 45. And where are we? 60 out of 79. The good news is that we are better than Bermuda, who is number 79. Bermuda, by the way, is a developed country. Is considered a developed country. But this just goes to show you, what does this show? It essentially shows that FDI's contribution, foreign direct investments contribution to the country's economy, has been very small, or relatively small compared to the other countries, right? That's the one message I got from this contribution index. Next slide, please. All right. Here is the, you showed this, Dennis, right? Okay. Notice that, I just want to zero in on where the Philippines is. The Philippines is in the second quartile as far as FDI potential index is, and it is in the 4th quartile. 4th quartile being the lowest. All right, and you see those colors there? Those colors show. It's a complicated thing to read, but it's worth studying. What essentially it's saying is that the Philippines is is pretty low when it comes to attraction. We do not attract. Obvious ba? We do not attract. And but we are in the second quartile with respect to potential. Sayang na sayang, ano ha? Or, ayan ang ibig sabihin yan. And we are with Sri Lanka, for heaven's sake, and Ecuador, and Greece, and Lithuania. And the brown, as you will see there, the colors show whether the country is performing above expectations, according to expectations or below, and we are below expectation. Obviously, if we're in the fourth quartile and in the second quartile, of course we are below expectations. So that is the attraction index versus the potential index. Now the next one, next slide please, is the contribution index versus inward. And here we are in the fourth quartile in both. The good news is we are performing to expectations. We were expected to perform badly, and we did. That's what it is. That's what it means. I just want to show, however, so the Philippines is their fourth quartile in both, but I just want to show two countries which are performing below expectations. Do you see Chile somewhere here? There is Chile. All right? There are two countries, Chile and where is Saudi Arabia, both performing below expectations. I just want to show you, I note this because Chile and Saudi Arabia are very full of foreign direct investments in their natural resources. And it's not doing a damn thing as far as contribution to their GDP is concerned. And that is essentially one of the messages of the WIR, although it's been a message since time immemorial, that investment is a potential contributor, but investment is not sufficient for development. And that is why the entire theme of this report, which I truly accept and truly hope that we adopt, is that when we craft our investment policies, we better craft it in such a way that it is also going to serve at least equally, give equal priority to inclusive development or inclusive growth and to sustainable development. Okay, what else did we say? Well, did you talk about this, sweetie? Did you talk about the national policy developments? Okay, finish. We talk, wait. Again, all right. Notice, I just want you to look at the fact that while there is liberalization, there is also a number of greater regulation. As far as the developments are concerned, there is now more state influence in extractive industries. They're learning their lessons. And of course, more critical approach towards outward FDI. These are for the countries who are investing abroad and they want their investments to come back. We're not really there. Next. International, yan ang regulatory changes, 67. 52 of them are promotion, 15 of them are regulation and restriction. But I want to show this other one. Next, please. All right. Yung national regulatory changes in 2011, saan sila pumunta? We said 67 and these are 71 because there are overlaps. All right. Notice most of the measures are favorable to FDIs. The second column there, the total number of measures, and then the percentage of the measures that are favorable or less favorable, more favorable, less favorable. And again, I want to point that in agriculture and agribusiness, they're about equal. In financial services, they're about equal. Some more favorable, some less favorable. Kanya-kanyang, there's no one size fits all. It depends on the environment, it depends on the objectives, etc. In most others, it's really trying to welcome them, open liberalization. But in extractive industries, the majority of the measures are less favorable to foreign investors. And there's another one. I didn't see it. Not yet, please. Not yet. Was there anything else? Extractive? No, 50 and 50 eh. Baka wala na. Do you see anything where there is a greater percentage? No, obviously not. Alright? So it is in extractive industries where the turn towards regulation is coming in, or certainly a change in the policy environment. And that essentially speaks to what we are facing now in the Philippines with this mining controversy. Next, please. Yeah. Next. Ayan. I just wanted to point out that in the international scene, ang growing discontent, ayaw na nila itong mga the present form of settling disputes between investors and states. There seems to be a growing unhappiness, dissatisfaction that the cards seem to be loaded in favor of the investor, and there should be more balance. Next, please. Okay. So what else is my reaction? Well, these are the challenges, and notice, there is a difference between sometimes how we talk about foreign investment in the Philippines and how foreign investment actually performs. We seem to like to think that foreign investment should be welcomed with open arms, unambiguously, unqualifiedly. And no, the point is that there are negative effects to investment, and what has to be done is to maximize the positive and minimize the negative impacts of investment. So yes, Virginia, investment can be damaging. Depends on the investment. Of course, it's not just the quantity, it's the quality of the investment. Okay, what else did I want to show as part of my reaction? Next, please. Alright, these are the policy challenges. In other words, the balancing the rights of the investors and the state. There must be responsibilities on both sides. All right. Next, she talked to you about the core principles. What I like to show about that core principles is that those core principles didn't just come out of thin air. Those core principles are based on international law. Let's look at the next one. All right. About those are the core principles. I again call your attention to balanced rights and obligations. It's no longer come in and we will give you everything you want. Just come in. It's a balanced rights and regulations, and there is a specific recognition of the right of the state to regulate. In other words, it's no more, if the state comes in and interferes, it's going to spoil the market, too much intervention, there will be inefficiencies. No. There is now a specific recognition of the right of the state to regulate, to establish entry or operational conditions in the interest of the public good and to minimize potential negative effects. Of course, this right to regulate is not unfettered either. It must also be part of the international commitments and etc. Next. So there are 11 of them, and they are all extremely good. But in case everybody thinks that it is something new, no. The authors of this report say here is where we took it from and where we brought it together. Next, please. Yeah. First, the UN Charter, the MDGs, global goal number 8, after all, is global partnership. Right? No senior partner, junior partner, it's equal partnership. The Monterrey Consensus, the Johannesburg Plan, which is the follow-up of the Rio Declaration, this latest UNCTAD conference, and of course, previous UNCTAD conferences, universal. Then look at the World Bank guidelines on the treatment of foreign investment, the Convention on the Establishment of MIGA. Unless you don't know what MIGA is, it is the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, multinational investment guarantee agency. Then the global, even the OECD, the the tripartite declaration of ILO, WTO. So all these principles were gathered, and of course together with the 30-year experience of this particular unit of UNCTAD in studying the impact of investment and policy, etc., they came up with this, what I think is an excellently crafted investment framework, investment policy framework for sustainable development. Next, please. Okay. I just wanted to bring up as part of the reaction, because this all moves towards my final plea, which is Philippines, wake up. We've got to get our act together, investment act together. And why am I going to say that? Well, here are the FDI flows by region and economy. Note, of course, the world, 1.5 trillion. That's the FDI inflows world. Developed economy, 747. Did Dennis tell you that it was only starting in 2010 that the developed economies got less than half of the inflows of FDIs? I thought that was pretty comforting. Now we go to Southeast Asia. 116 of what goes, 116 billion dollars. And for Southeast Asia, let's go straight down to the Philippines. Of that $116,000 that came in 2011, FDI inflows. This is not net, huh? Because the rest is outflows. 1.2 billion. 1.2 billion out of what is it? 116 billion. That's less than 1%, isn't it? That's less than 1%. And we are probably, in Southeast Asia, we are probably the second largest country in terms of population. So, I mean, something's got to be wrong somewhere, right? Okay, the outros are there. I'll go to the next one. I'll be on next one, please. Yeah, this is stock demand. Stock has to do with long term. You know, how much is there. Flow is how much comes in during the year. Stock is what is the total stock that has come in. And again, look at, we're talking 1990. In 1990, the total stock, the FDI inward stock for the Philippines was 4.5 billion. Compare that to Singapore, 30 billion. Compare that to Thailand, 8 billion. Compare that to Malaysia, 10 billion. Where's Indonesia? Another 8 billion. Talagang laggard tayo, no? Ha? Laggard tayo. That's in 1990. Look what's happened. And I just want to say that in 1990, Vietnam was 1.6 billion. We were more attractive than Vietnam, not anymore. Look at what has happened in 2011. In 2011, the Philippines' total stock, in other words, stock versus flow, 27 billion. Singapore just for 518 na. Malaysia, 114. We are really so... And guess what? Vietnam, 72 billion. When I saw that, I almost fainted with frustration and envy. Of course, I will not say that outside, but I will say that among us. 72 billion. That's the total stock. Let's see. Can we go back to see the flow for Vietnam, please? Vietnam. Oh, look at us. Philippines 1.2, Vietnam 7 billion. And please don't tell me that they have more natural resources than we do, or more people than we do, or whatever. So, well, okay? Next, please. And this is all by inward stock, outward stock. All right. Value of greenfield projects, FDI projects. Yung greenfield is new construction, new plant. You know, in other words, it's something totally new versus brownfield, where you're just remodeling or adding on or acquiring whatever. Tignan nyo ang greenfield projects. Ito yung bagong new coming in. In the Philippines, to 2011, 257. Compare that to Vietnam, 1,643 project. $1.6 billion versus $257 million. Hindi ba nakakatakot? Right? Thailand, 4. Why are we so? Why is it 4 billion and we're 257 million? What is it about them? Don't you think we should ask? I think we should ask ourselves, well, not we, but certainly the government must ask ourselves, what is it about our policy framework that has to be changed so that we can maximize the good and minimize the bad? Here we're minimizing everything. All right? So that's your green field. That's very important. That is the world as destination. In other words, the Philippines is building abroad. Guess who's building? Where are we building? Where is the investment of the Philippines abroad in greenfield? Yeah, it's at China. You have the Lushotans of this world. And so now, world as source naman, ito yung Philippines, 2.9 billion versus 20 billion for Singapore versus 4 billion for Thailand and versus 10.3 billion for. In other words, Vietnam is killing us in terms of being a competitive source, a competitive host for investment projects. Okay? And so all this data, is there any more that I put in? Number of greenfield projects. Sa Philippines, 9. Sa Vietnam, 25. Sa Malaysia, 74. That's as destination. As source. The world as source. Just go. Philippines, 74. Thailand, 364. Vietnam, 172. Malaysia, 188. Okay? Even Indonesia is 150. By the way, kanina we were so proud that we are now just one notch below investment grade. Diba? Yabang-yabang. Indonesia got investment grade, I think, late last year. Okay, so, what does this all show me that I want to share with you as a reaction to the World Investment Report? Obviously, number one, we certainly have the potential. But number two, we're not attracting. Number three, and the FDI that we are attracting is not contributing so much to our economy in terms of employment, etc. Something is obviously wrong. And that is why the recommendation obviously follows that one, can we look at this investment policy framework for sustainable development that will show how you can balance, and there is not one single recipe. There are so many options. You look at that chapter, I think that's a 70-page chapter, but it is worth looking into much more deeply. And second, I think the next thing we want to make sure of is that this investment policy framework, if we cannot do it ourselves, there is apparently the UNCTAD's Division of Entrepreneurship and Investment and Entrepreneurship has done 30 policy reviews for 30 countries. And if we think that perhaps we may need some expertise, it certainly is time that we go to UNCTAD and say, could you please review our policy framework and point out to us the inconsistencies, because we would like to have a coherent whole. Now, UNCTAD is not like the IMF. UNCTAD is very pro-South, pro-developing countries, and that's why I'm very comfortable asking for UNCTAD's help. And if we can do that, then for sure, the kind of investment flows, not just the quantity, but the quality of investment flows to the Philippines will increase, and we are in a position then, given these indices that have been developed by UNCTAD, to determine whether we are being effective or not. And that, to me, is the value added of the World Investment Report for 2012. Thank you. Meron pa ba? Was there another slide? Wala na? Thank God.
Thank you very much, Professor Monsod, for your presentation. I'd like to, UNIC Manila would like to apologize to both our guest presenter and guest reactor for getting the report to them only last Tuesday. Actually, it's been a tricky year for UNCTAD. As of last Monday, they were still editing the report. And that explains why we got the PDF file only last Tuesday, and also why we do not have printed copies of the report with us today. So, Professor Monsod and Mr. Arroyo can take questions now.
Sure.
Good afternoon. I'm Celerina Monte from the Daily Manila Shimbun. I just want to ask because in the coming days, the government will come up with this executive order regarding the mining policy of the government. So I'm wondering what's your expectation and how do you think this would help on the investment here in the Philippines?
Yeah. Well, I have absolutely no idea of what that executive order will contain. I know that there has been tremendous amount of lobbying on both sides. You have for the environment, etc., people like Bebet Gosum and what is the name of the tall, beautiful girl? That's it, Serena is that, yeah, Serene, right? Yes, she's very good. And a number of very expert consultants who have gotten together and tried to put their inputs. On the other side, of course, is the mining industry. And that is to be expected. I was told, for example, by the Australian embassy, that the Australian government lost in the battle with the mining industry because they wanted to increase the take of the Australian government, because of course you own the resource, for heaven's sake. But somehow or other, the message that was crafted and was sold to the public, which was put to the public, was that if you do that, employment will suffer tremendously. And so mining, the mining reforms was equated with unemployment. It was a very successful message, and as a result, by the way, the sitting prime minister was booted out of office in the next elections. So you can see what the stakes are. The amount of money that was spent for the media campaign, enormous, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, because the stake was very high. So what happened was that the Australian government could increase its stake on certain minerals, but not on oil. Ayun ang nangyari. So we will see what happens. The longer it takes, you know, the longer it takes, that means the fiercer the fight has been. And I don't know who's going to win. But one thing sure, it is clear that all over the world, a second look is being taken by the states on the extractive industries and their contribution, number one. And that is why I called your attention to Chile and Saudi Arabia's position, because Chile and Saudi Arabia are very dependent on natural resource extraction, mining, and yet the contribution of these investments are not very, very high. Mining is very, very low employment generation. Okay? Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm Kai from the Business Mirror. I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the negative list that the NEDA regularly updates, the limit of foreign ownership in certain businesses? Do you think it's time for us to shorten the list and be more loose with our policies in the hope of attracting FDIs?
Well, having been with NEDA for a period of time, I am very respectful of their abilities, and I think when they talk about a negative list, it's not because somebody has pressured them to put something on the negative list. What they do is essentially, in one way or the other, Dennis, you were with NEDA.
Yes, but I handle industry, PIUS. I handle the macro forecasting.
Why, you don't have MANCOM meetings? Okay. No, but it's the important thing that it is updated. What I see right now, and what has been the object of quite a great deal of research, is that there seems to be a dysfunctional investment policy, because the conventional thinking, the mainstream, is that you do not give incentives to all people or to all potential investors. You don't. You distinguish between what they invest among their investments. You give incentives only to efficiency-seeking investors, meaning to say these are people who can come here just as well as China or Malaysia, etc. They're looking for efficiency. They're looking for lowest cost, greatest productivity, etc. That's the one you give incentives to. You do not give incentives to what is called market-seeking investments. Market-seeking is that they are coming here, they are to invest here, so that they can take advantage of the market size. Eh, bakit ka pa magbibigay na investment? Ayun ang incentive, ayun ang incentive nila. And the third area where you do not give incentives is to natural resource seeking incentives. Is this something that came out of my mind from God? No, this is something that is part and parcel of economic development theory. And it is my colleague, Pompom, Professor Reside, isn't it awful? His nickname is Pompom and he hates it. Has come up with this study. Renato ba?
Renato, yes.
Romeo is the statistician with BAS. Renato is my colleague in NICA. Yeah. He has come out and he has found out that those incentives cost the government anywhere from 1 to 1.6% of GDP and are absolutely unnecessary. 1 to 1.6% of GDP is how much? What, 150 billion pesos? Can you think of what we can do with that? And then, with all that incentives, ganyan pa yung ating resulta. No one can question that, no? That you can compare on a basis.
I'm Risa from Inquirer. I'd like to get your thoughts on the investment priorities plan that the DTI recently announced. And among those that it was largely attained from last year, and among those that still have incentives includes mining. And PPP was lumped together with transport infrastructure. So could you?
Sweetie, just like what I said, obviously there is some kind of dysfunction here. There is some kind of incoherence here. I mean, what can the contribution of mining to GDP possibly be? Very small employment, di ba? Tapos, tapos magkakaroon pa ng environmental effect. Diyos ko po. I mean, this is totally, unless it is regulated properly, the effect is going to be almost 10 to 1. The effect is going to be that there is going to be more negative than positive effects. Of course, there are positive effects. They employ people, right? But can you imagine? This is an industry which only pays 2% of gross revenue as the what do you call it? It's not a tax, royalty. 2%. 2%. of your, they should at least have the profits, right? It's my property, it's my gold. You are bringing it out. I should get half the profits. There's nothing, basically wrong about that. There's everything right. Let's share half and half. Or you want, we'll give you 60, we'll get 40. Although I think we should get 60 and they gave 40. But this is 60-40 of the profits, you understand?
Yes.
Diba? Oh, 2%!
But ma'am,
My
considering...
God, and then they'll say it's part of our investment priority. That's what gets you so frustrated. In the light of this, I'm going to send to them anonymously. I'll send them anonymously through my column.
Well, considering that most of those already in the list in 2011 were retained, what other recommendations or what other comments would you have on the list of industries that still get incentives?
Well, I am not in any position, but I would strongly recommend that Professor Reside, given I think he has been studying this for years, right? Keeps on updating, improving the database from what he gets from the data from customs, and he should be able to say. And I mean, I have absolutely no idea how that priority list gets updated. I really don't. And I am willing to attribute to Greg Domingo total, good faith. But I am not sure that, I'm sure that the investment priority list and the investment framework of this country would be much improved with a review from an independent, non-partisan, objective outsider like the UNIC. By the way, did I tell you that Vietnam has taken advantage of every service offered by that agency? You see, investment priority, investment review, andyan dyan ang Vietnam. They have hindi sila mayabang. And look at what must have helped them. Hindi ba?
I'm Kate Soriano from Sunshine Media. Ma'am, doon sa mga binanggit na among the potentials that can help in the potential aspect of the investment plan. Sinasabi dito, yung CSR, how will this help percentage of the improvement for the investment scheme?
See, what is being recommended is that the CSR should not just be practiced by the outsiders, but by the insiders, or in other words, mainstream the CSR. But this report also tells you how unduly burdensome some of the CSRs, some of the CSR processes that are practiced by your multinational, your transnational companies. For example, kasi they impose corporate social responsibility on their suppliers in the host country. All right, just for every particular aspect, it gets to be separate filling of your data. Report yan ng World Investment Report. And when you're talking about small and medium industries, small and medium firms, I'm not sure that they're going to be capable of answering, 40 pages of information to ensure that corporate social responsibility is being.
And very little percentage of companies that we put in their investment packages for a CSR. So when you apply for that accommodation wherein they can help in the developing of people, they put a little percentage in helping.
In other words, what you're saying is that CSR as practiced in the Philippines
should be strengthened.
Yeah, certainly. I agree with you. But first you have to show the data.
Yes.
Because we cannot live on assertions. It would be very interesting because everybody's talking about corporate social responsibility.
Because we're talking about how how can we help in the framework of this investment scheme? And who is the right agency to undertake this program?
Perfect. Perfect that you brought that up, because the World Investment Report actually says that when you are doing these reviews, please include all stakeholders. Do not assume that you know better than everybody. And I think that is a principle that that should be part and parcel of, we should internalize that principle. Yeah. Diba? Magbibigay ka ng mga sheets to be filled up by the supplier. At least consult, does this look like it? You can answer it? Or is there a better way that we can measure? Di ba ganon? Imbes na, well, somebody in HR did it, so we'll just give it out. I think you want to do this.
Good afternoon, I'm Johnny Daya. We appreciate very much your very instructive presentation and comments. To the very revealing World Investment Report, which is more or less negative to the Philippines. But we also see that there exists some surging initiatives of key players in business in the Philippines. Kailangan pa bang pakialaman natin ito o kailangan pa bang may manggulo sa growing initiatives of some key players in the business?
The World Investment Report essentially concentrates on foreign direct investment. The principle, of course, that investment is a driver of growth. But even if a country grows, if that growth is a poor quality growth, if that growth is jobless, or if that growth is ruthless, or that growth is futureless because of then there is no development. That is the point of this WIR 12. They're saying, hey, you cannot just talk about it in isolation. You've got to bring in investment and make sure that the investment that you get or that comes out is the investment of the right kind. Actually, the report calls it responsible investment. And it's not only foreign direct investors that try to exploit, excuse me. So I think the rules should be equally implemented or equally brought out for all. Tignan nyo lang sa mining, di ba? Small mining, ang lalaki pala ng mga, that come from abroad and hide under small mining and do, get them. I mean, do all kinds of corrupt practices in order to be able to be under the radar. And it's enormous. And who allows it? Is it not the local governments? So you have local governments being devils and you have local governments being angels. What you need is a code that you follow, so that whether they want to be devils or angels, they must be held to the same strict measurement.
We have time for just one more question. Yes, Kim.
Good afternoon, Kim Patria from Business World. Ma'am, you mentioned that investment should be employment generating. On what sectors should the Philippines attract more investments to?
All investment is going to be employment generating. I mean, you cannot produce something without a combination of resources. The question is, how much employment per amount invested? Ayun ang pinagkuhan. What is it? For example, in that contribution, the contribution index of FDI, one of the indicators is employment by the investors divided by the foreign investors divided by total employment. Eh, kung sasabihin mo, wow, you know, we're going to create 5,000 jobs. Hey, we've got a 38 million person labor force. So you say, well, 5,000 jobs, and how much capital are you putting in to be able to accommodate that? Oh, about 250 million pesos per job. That is something that I just got out of thin air. It could be 2 million, 5 million, 10 million per job. But when you're talking about labor-intensive investment, you're talking about for every 60,000 pesos of investment, you can create one job. Oh yeah. And if you're talking about yung, anong tawag doon, yung pinakamaliit, macro, micro, sus ko, 5,000 pesos, nakaka-create ka na. Hindi ba? That's the kind of thing. It's just not the quantity of employment, but also the quality of employment also, hindi ba? Ask naman Dennis now.
No, you can get, from a media point of view, you can get more colorful quotes from her. And I defer to my professor.
Yes. And while we're at it, Dennis, you called me your old professor. Did you hear that? Did you see? Yeah. It immediately impacted on me. And I said, tignan mo itong Arroyo ito. My former professor, my old professor.
I'm a former.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Monsod and Mr. Dennis Arroyo. Now we'd like to just take a little bit of time to present our certificate of appreciation to our guest.
By the way, you know that I did not know that there was lunch. Nobody told me that there was lunch. You didn't tell me, and my assistant did not tell me. Really, I did not see it because I could have come here pala to have lunch.
Yes, we have a packed lunch for Professor Bundo. Yes, we prepared this. So we now present the certificate of appreciation to Mr. Dennis Arroyo. Mari, my colleague, will just read the text of the certificate.
The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development and the United Nations Information Center, Manila, present the Certificate of Appreciation to Mr. Dennis Arroyo, Director Social Weather Stations, for being our presenter during the Manila launch of the World Investment Report 2012 on the theme Investment Policy Framework for Sustainable Development, given this 5th day of July 2012 at Tribeca Function Room, Astoria Plaza Hotel, Pasig City, signed by Teresa L. De Bugay, UNIC National Information Officer.
Sorry.
We also have a gift for...
Look at that.
Please accept our small gift.
The United Nations Conference of Trade and Development and the UNIC presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Professor Solita Monsod, University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City, for being a reactor during the Manila launch of the World Investment Report on the theme Investment Policy Framework for Sustainable Development, given this 5th day of July 2012, Astoria Plaza Hotel, signed by Teresa L. De Bugay.
Thank you very much. No, sweetheart, no problem. A world launch simultaneous is extremely hard to carry out. Thank you. Thank you. I'll just get this back, huh?
So, thank you very much to our friends in the press. I know that you will have your own one-on-one interviews with our resource person. So, on behalf of UNIC Manila, my colleagues, I would like to thank you for coming this afternoon.
Kanina,